was always the Jags. It's always the Jags. It's always the Jags. Always the Jags. Always the Jags.
Welcome back into Always the Jags. Man, it is hard to be optimistic during these dark times. I know I didn't end up covering the last 5 games of the season because they were horrible. It's so hard to find anything to talk about when we get, demolished by the Lions, and then the next games are just, it's like what even matters? Anyway, here we are at the end of the season, and now the Jaguars have to do everything we can in order to turn it around, and it looks like we fumbled again, because the Bears have announced that they're going to hire Ben Johnson, and it looks like the deal is going to finalize, and the Jaguars will miss out on the best head coaching prospect out there. And the sad part is, far and away, most pundits believed the Jaguars opening was the best one in the league. Until Shad Kahn decided he was going to keep Trent Baalke. And then the narrative became like, oh, I don't know if people are going to want to work with Trent Baalke. And the thing is like, people like head coaches like the idea of bringing in their own guy for a GM so you can really be aligned. But I'm also kind of sick of this. I bring my friends with me to do my work. You know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of sick of these are my, I'm going to have my friends be my coordinators and defensive coordinators, because sometimes that doesn't work, like with Doug Peterson, and it didn't work with Press Taylor. That's his friend, and that's the whole reason why he got fired, because Doug Peterson wouldn't challenge him or take over or change anything to help us score more points than we were scoring. So that's why we're in this whole predicament and situation in the first place. So from a Jaguars fan's perspective, it's like we're just not getting it done. And I don't know how Trent Baalke has survived 3 different head coaches during his time with the Jaguars, because he took over for interim when Dave Caldwell was there. And then he was the head coach when Urban Meyer was here and then got fired. And then he was the interim during that Darrell Bevell period. And then he took over. He stayed while Doug Peterson was head coach. And again, I don't understand how he survives, or what and the thing is like, let me be clear. Trent Baalke is not horrible. I don't know what it's like to work with him, obviously, but I don't think he's a horrible GM, right? But he has made some big blunders that have cost us seasons. He's made some shrewd draft moves that at the time I wasn't sure about, and they ended up panning out, right? Like, I didn't know that Anton Harrison looks like it's going to end up being a good pick. Brenton Strange, I didn't really like that pick when he made it, and it's starting to come on. But he's also done some boneheaded things, like taking Chad Muma in the 3rd round. And we got Devin Lloyd in the 1st round, and we already have Chad Muma in that 2nd round. And then the next year in the 4th round, he drafts another linebacker. So now we have Foye, Ventrell Miller, and Devin Lloyd, 3 linebackers that can hit and play the run, but none of them can really cover. And we extended Alubicon. So Chad Muma, we spent a 3rd round pick on a special teams player, because Ventrell Miller plays more than Chad Muma. These are the decisions I'm talking about. The whole Cam Robinson fumble, because again, our offensive line, like Walker Little is playing so well right now. But the thing is, he played well when Cam Robinson went down. And I don't know why more people didn't believe in him, that he was the guy, but he was the guy. He was the left tackle. So even after that, first of all, Cam Robinson, I don't think even needed to be extended. And second of all, once he did get extended, he could have been traded once he was out, because Walker Little held it down so well. And the first 5 games of the season last year, the only reason why we kept, like, as soon as Cam Robinson got, I think the idea was for Walker Little to play the right side, right? And have Cam Robinson play the left side. But as soon as Cam Robinson got hit with this performing enhancing drugs ban, they had to draft a tackle because they didn't really have anyone that they trusted. So they drafted Anton Harrison. It's like at that point last season, you could have traded Cam Robinson in the middle of the season because Anton Harrison was starting to get better. But even when Anton Harrison was like starting to get better, they didn't put Walker Little in because he wasn't quite ready. Because for the first 5 games last year, he was a turnstile. Like, let's be honest. But he started to really come on. But that's because he was getting reps. Um, but then so you have Walker Little, a starting caliber left tackle on the bench, and then you just have Cam Robinson, who's been playing well, but not $18 million a year well. And we finally get to the point where we trade Cam Robinson, finally allow Walker Little to take over as left tackle, and then that same year we have to give Walker Little an extension for $15 million a year, which I think is a great deal for him. My thing is that deal, we didn't get to experience any of his rookie contract because we didn't need to have Cam Robinson's $18 million on the books for these past 2 seasons. We could have gotten rid of him before then. I don't even think he needed to be extended, frankly, compared to other players that need to be extended, because we drafted Walker Little, and Walker Little has played well. He's never been in a game, and I was like, he was the problem. He's consistently been our best offensive lineman, consistently. And he's gotten a lot better at run blocking, even when he couldn't beat out Jawan Taylor for the right tackle job, which we all thought he was going to do. That's just an example of fumbling, because that $18 million, imagine if Trent Baalke had used it to, like, I don't know, bring in Marshawn Lattimore like the Commanders did. And what are the Commanders doing again? Oh, right. They are going to the NFC Championship. Right. Almost forgot about that. Things like that make me like, we don't need Trent Baalke to be here anymore. And again, a lot of our draft players are starting to come on, but it's not like Ventrell Miller is a great cover guy. He flies around, he makes a lot of great tackles. But you also need to stop people from catching the ball. Like, it's great that if you tackle them, but it'd be nice to stop them from catching the ball in the first place so they don't get the first down. That's the problem that we have when we have with Ventrell Miller and Devin Lloyd and Foye Lucan. We basically have 3 guys that can all do the same thing, and one of them is supposed to be a first round pick. So these are some of the grievances of why Shad Kahn, it's time to let Baalke go. It's time to let old things die. But he's just attached to him, and I think it's because Baalke convinced him that, like, oh well, the roster was constructed well. We just didn't have the roster was constructed well. It's just we didn't have the right coach to bring it all together. And it's like, no, you didn't have cornerbacks. Ronald Darby was washed before you signed him. He had a good year with the Ravens in a good scheme, right? You were missing a cornerback. Missing. The entire year, Ronald Darby gave up like 154 QB passer rating this entire year. And I knew I wasn't mad at the signing because he's a capable backup, but I knew our cornerback room was not going to be good enough. And Tyson Campbell is perennially hurt. He spends a lot of time. So, like, he's a good player, but you have to be prepared that he's going to be hurt. And that's also why I feel like we didn't really need to extend him when we did. So here we are, Jaguars fans, waiting for the coaching cycle. Ben Johnson might be the only person who could unlock our offense, and we lose him to the Chicago Bears. Now, if Ben Johnson just decided he didn't want to come to Jacksonville because Trent Baalke is still there, that would be on Shad Kahn for keeping Trent Baalke, because that is ridiculous for you to keep the GM when it costs you the best head coaching search. And from everything that I heard, Ben Johnson wanted to come to Jacksonville. That was the place. But again, the best job was the Jaguars, except for the fact that we had Trent Baalke in the building, because the Bears are still a great job. But again, look at the division. Look at that division. You got to play the Packers, Eagles, and Lions twice a year. And then look at our division. If you make our offense good, you potentially have 2 teams you can sweep, because we almost swept the Colts, came down to 3 points, and we swept the Titans. And we almost could have beaten the Texans twice. So Ben Johnson comes over to looking at both situations, there's a much easier path to the division crown with Jacksonville. And the division crown is the best way to get into the playoffs because you get a guaranteed home game. Not to mention, I mean, again, Caleb Williams versus Trevor Lawrence. Maybe Ben Johnson feels like Caleb Williams is more of like a blank slate, and you won't have to undo some of the things. But it's like you've seen how well Trevor Lawrence operates in a good offense, right? So you wouldn't really have to fix Trevor Lawrence or make him really good. All you have to do is make sure the offense around him is working, right? Because he can already navigate and do things well in a good offense. The problem was Doug Peterson and Doug Peterson and Press Taylor couldn't figure out how to get things going when things weren't working. They couldn't figure it out. But for Ben Johnson, your only job would be get things going when they're not working. Figure out plays that you can go to, schemes and things that will allow our offense to start cooking so Trevor Lawrence can get into a rhythm because we all know what happens when he gets into a rhythm. And the sad part for me this entire year is that the Texans are supposed to be like a juggernaut, and they were nothing this year. Nothing. And we lost so many one score games. You cannot tell me that if we had a better, if we had an additional piece somewhere, we could have made a run or done something differently. Like, I'm almost like, if we played the Titans early in the season, if we had played the Titans early in the season, and then maybe the Patriots and the Colts, the other game that we won, and we went into the bye week. Maybe we played them all, and then we went into the trade deadline bye week at 4-3, because we lost a couple of games, maybe one score to Miami and a couple others. If we were the ones that made that third and fourth round pick trade for Marshawn Lattimore, which again was a great move, because the Vikings would have, because we got those from the Vikings for free. Are you meaning to tell me that we wouldn't have won a lot of those one score games? I think we'd be in the playoffs if we did that. But of course, because we were losing and no one felt like the season could be salvaged, because the same issue that we had at the beginning of the year, we still had. Because Tyson Campbell gets hurt. So you can't just have your second cornerback can't just be as good as Tyson Campbell because he's only going to play like half the season because that's how his career has been. So, like, Darius Williams was good as the number two corner, but when Tyson Campbell went down, he was not very good as the number one corner. So that's why we need a guy who could allow Tyson to be the number one corner. That way, Tyson could be the number one corner if needed to, or he could be the number two corner. And Marshawn Lattimore would have been that guy. And like I said, it's just the way the season played out, he didn't end up making that move. And I think that would have been a move to make in the offseason because it seemed like, especially after the Saints took Kool-Aid McKinstry, um, and maybe they wanted to give him time to acclimate before they traded him. I'm sure they didn't want to while the season was going so well for the Saints at first. They won their first two games in blowouts. Um, but either way, here we are. Because you look at all the other coaching positions, and Raiders, you ain't got no quarterback. Saints, horrible quarterback situation. Nobody wanted to touch that one. Jets, Aaron Rodgers devaluing. You kind of had like a questionable quarterback situation there. Um, as well as your division still isn't easy. And then you have I'm trying to think of the other openings. The Dallas Cowboys one was pretty attractive, but I think they let go of Mike McCarthy. That way Deion Sanders could come there. I think that's like already written in stone going to happen. And of course, the Patriots were going to get Mike Vrabel no matter what. Once I feel like it didn't even matter what Jared Mayo. If Jared Mayo won 10 games this year, I think he still would have been fired. So the Patriots could have had Mike Vrabel, because that's definitely who they wanted. But either way, here we are. And like I said, if it's because Trent Baalke, if it's because Shad Kahn retained, if Ben Johnson's only qualm about coming to Jacksonville was the fact that Trent Baalke was still here, that's on Shad Kahn. And that's an ownership issue. Because what other reason would he have for not wanting to come to Jacksonville? Does he like the snow and freezingness of Chicago? Does he like paying income state taxes in Illinois? Even the situation there, like the Bears defense is, pretty rock solid. Um, but again, that division compared to our division kind of evens it out. Not to mention, and the thing is, like, Chicago already has a GM in Ryan Poles, but Ryan Poles doesn't have a reputation for being being combative or fighting or not getting along with people, right? Because he's a new GM. right? Trent Baalke has that because he's been a GM for a long time and he survived so many head coaches in San Francisco. So there's an idea around the league that people just don't want to work with him. Um, because again, you look at both situations. Are there more weapons on the Bears? Arguably, but Brian Thomas Jr. might be better than DJ Moore by the time the season's over next season. He's already a star, right? I think Evan Ingram is better than Cole Kmet. Our offensive line is definitely better than what the Bears have. And Keenan Allen might not even be around next year. Are you going to bring him back? And Rome Odunze didn't really develop the way that they thought he was going to. So, and like I said, to me, the main thing is the division. Do you want to go to a winnable division or not? But if Ben Johnson feels like, hey, it doesn't matter how winnable the division is, if I don't get along with the GM, it's not going to work out, then that's the way it works. And so if he felt like he could work with Brian Poles and didn't feel like he could work with Trent Baalke, again, that's on Shad Kahn. Because if we just fired the GM, Ryan Poles would have brought in, Ben Johnson could have brought in his guy. And the thing is like, I don't even understand what the loyalty to Bulky is because it's like, sure, he made some like good draft picks here and there, but their draft, like, it's not like you have to get rid of them when you get rid of Bulky. It's not like they're not going to play well. Like, just keep the players that he picked that did well, right? And that's not even necessarily him. That's more of our scouting department anyway. He's the one who decides what trades go through, what trades to ask for, and what to get what to get, like what to pay players and things like that. And so, like I said, I mean, and GMs do get blamed a lot for drafting, but I mean, it's a collaborative process, honestly. And to me, I thought our drafting, to be completely honest, I thought our drafting was way worse when we had Doug Peterson in than when we had Trent Baalke in. Because I was not understanding the traits that. No, Brian Thomas Jr., and I don't know if Brian Thomas Jr. saved his career, but like that was the pick to make in that spot. You know what I mean? That like we got lucky. Like he didn't pick him out and be like, oh, he's gonna be the guy. It was like, okay, well, the first three receivers were off the board. I guarantee you, if the Jaguars were at number 9, we would have picked Rome Odunze. If the Jaguars were at number 4, we would have picked Marvin Harrison Jr. That was not a special GM saving. That was just Brian Thomas Jr. ended up being really, really good. And it was really great for us. That does not mean Trent Baalke should be our GM, especially because now we look at the head coaching candidates. We've got Liam Cohen, who's only been an OC, if I'm not mistaken, for just a year because David Canales was the OC last year and then he became the Panthers. So he's got a year of experience compared to Ben Johnson's 3 years of experience as well as proven track record of doing it. And the Buccaneers have lost some really weird games this year. I'm not going to lie. Like they beat the Lions and that was impressive. But they also lost really badly to another team, and I can't remember who it is. But like, I'm not very impressed by the Buccaneers offense. Like, I'm not like, oh, this guy's gonna unlock Trevor Lawrence. I don't see, like, maybe if he did it for 3 more years, and again, he came in after Dave Canales, and Dave Canales feels like the guy that unlocked Baker Mayfield and returned him to his glory, and that's what he's doing with Bryce Young in Carolina. It just took a little bit longer. So my next choice might be Joe Brady, just because he's consistently been doing it with the Buffalo offense. And as soon as he took over, their offense went to a new height. And he's been able to do so much with so little, in receivers and things like that. And giving him someone like Brian Thomas Jr. Would really help unlock it and really help him see the strengths. And the way that he utilizes the run game, I think, would really, really help. Because the way that he made James Cook kind of like a focal point, I think that's where Trevor operates best. And so I think Joe Brady's offense feels like it would work better for Trevor compared to Liam Cohen's offense because I don't know how much of that is Liam Cohen's offense and holdovers from Dave Canales' offense. Right. So that's why I'm more leaning towards Joe Brady. I would rather have Ben Johnson, but I'm more leaning towards Joe Brady. Especially because if you look at Ben Johnson, he's got the Thunder and Lightning in he's in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. That's Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. Like he literally would have the same pieces right here in Jacksonville. And then I think maybe DeAndre Swift made a difference being in Chicago. I really don't know. I really don't know. I thought the Bears were honestly going to go for Mike McCarthy, kind of a very experienced, grizzled guy. He gets a chance to stick it to his former team twice a year. Maybe they looked at the Cowboys playoff, but like he's one, most of the time he's been in Dallas. This has just been a bad year. And you could argue Dak Prescott was gone half the year. So I thought that's who the Cowboys were going to get. I thought that's who the Bears were going to get. But then they, like I said, it looks like pretty foregone that they're going to get Ben Johnson. And again, quarterback situation, comparing us to the Bears. Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams isn't more proven than Trevor Lawrence. Maybe some people would feel like they would take Caleb Williams over Trevor Lawrence. I wouldn't. Like, I don't think it's been enough time, right? I think Caleb Williams can still make bad decisions under pressure. I think Trevor Lawrence doesn't have a defense that can support him right now because for some reason, our defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen, decided he wanted Eric Armstead to be our backup defensive end. And now, at the end of the season, Eric Armstead is coming out and saying, like, yeah, I'm going to get back to playing defensive tackle like I wanted to. What? What? The entire season, all the pundits and media have all been saying, why is Eric Armstead playing defensive end? Oh, it's because he heard that he wanted to come to Jacksonville because he would get to play some defensive end. And now he's saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to get back to playing defensive tackle. I'm more not. What are the players and the coaches just not communicating? These are things that just don't make any literal sense. And again, you can't convince me that we wouldn't have won a few more games had we had Trayvon Walker move inside and put Eric Armstead right next to him and kept Josh Allen on the edge instead of putting him on the bench for 3 plays for Miles Cole. You cannot convince me. I definitely think the issue this year was coaching, but I don't think the roster was not the issue either. So we'll go back next week and I'll talk about roster wish lists for the offseason, how to, kind of fix us and where our biggest holes are. You let me know what you think. I mean, I think it's pretty simple for all Jags fans. They want Trent Baalke to be gone. And the fact that Trent Baalke not being gone means that we missed out on the best head coach. Like if we could have still got Ben Johnson after having Trent Baalke, okay, that's fine. And my goal was maybe maybe we can convince Robert Saleh to be the defensive coordinator because at least he will play guys who actually make sense to be on the field, right? Like that would be wonderful if we just kept our best players on the field for our defensive drives. What a concept, right? But I mean, Robert Saleh, at least our defense would be better, right? But we still need someone who can keep the offensive going even when things seem like they're not working. Someone who can be innovative and creative. And that's what we were lacking with Press Taylor and under Doug Peterson. And I don't know if it was Doug Peterson's fault, but that's what we were lacking. And so we will see. We will see. That's all we can really say. Obviously, go Jaguars. Voice your frustrations in the chat. Let us. I mean, who did you want for offense? Who did you want for head coach besides Ben Johnson? Because again, and to me, it's like, can you listen to your fans, Shad Kahn? Can you listen to the people that allow you to make money off of this team? Because again, the fans are the reason why you could buy this team because we're the ones that give you money to come to games, right? Like 50,000 people. Imagine how much better, how many more tickets we would sell if you listened to the fans and you went after the guys they wanted and you fired the guys that they didn't want. And again, fans can't really make those decisions anymore so because we're not in those rooms making those interviews, right? But like Pete Prisco pointed out that like Shad Khan maybe was keeping Trent Baalke on so he could help him with like the football lingo for the football search. And it's like at that point, Shad Khan is basically saying he doesn't know more than a fan does when it comes to hiring a coach, right? Like if you need to keep your former GM because you don't understand football that much, that you need your former GM to help you find a new head coach so you can possibly replace your current GM and the head coach that you fired, you're telling us you don't know more about football than most fans do. Because I wouldn't need Trent Baalke to tell me who to hire for head coach. I wouldn't need Trent Baalke to tell me what I would ask in an interview. And granted, again, I don't have $1 billion. I'm not the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. But to me, like, if you feel like you can't make the decision without some outside help, then just listen to the fans because they were all saying the exact same thing. get rid of Baalke, bring us Ben Johnson. They didn't really care who the general manager is as long as Ben Johnson was in the building. Because all we felt like we needed was an innovative offense. And again, Robert Saleh, maybe even Dennis Allen, who I hear is going to be the defensive coordinator. At least he's a good defensive coordinator. Not a good coach, but a good defensive coordinator because the Saints defense was good when he was in charge. I would have been fine with that too. That's who Ben Johnson really wanted. But yes, here we are. So let us know your thoughts again. And never forget, it was always the Jags, even when it's not.